Now, police in Thailand have used water cannon to disperse anti-government demonstrators in Bangkok. Protests calling for the resignation of Prime Minister Prayuth Chan-o-cha have been ongoing since July. They say the constitution drafted under military rule is illegitimate. They're also demanding a reform of the country's monarchy. Well, supporters of Thailand's royal family held a separate rally backing the king. Hundreds of royalists marched to the parliament in Bangkok, demanding the preservation of the monarch's role. So, Scott Heidler in Bangkok for us. Scott, tell us about where you are and what you've been seeing in those protests.
Kamal, the reason we're all here actually is because Parliament, which is just off to the right here, they are having the first reading of 7 proposed amendments to the Constitution. And as you mentioned, those who support the monarchy here, they don't want any change to the Constitution. There are 6 other proposed changes. They're going to be 2 days of reading. The protesters, the anti-government protesters, these are the numbers we've seen swell on the streets of Thailand over the last several months. They've backed one of these proposed amendments to the Constitution. That's why they're here now. And what's very interesting, Kamal, now I would say within the last 45 minutes, we're right on the edge of the property where the Parliament is. The police had kept the protesters at least 50 meters away. Within the last 45 minutes, the police had at least 2 lines of riot cops behind me and then 2 water cannon trucks in front of them. And we saw them administer chemical-laced blue water, purple water. That had been going on for about 2 hours. But then, just in the last 45 minutes, the police retreated. They went down that road. And why that's important? Obviously, yes, because they wanted to come here, the protesters, and protest in front of Parliament. But the flashpoints that everyone has been very concerned about is these 2 sets of protesters seeing each other eye to eye, and this is the first time it's happened where it's been mildly violent. I'll say mildly because it only lasted a bit. It was quite violent. So once the anti-government protesters came into this intersection, the pro-monarchy, the yellow shirts, they are down this alley, as you mentioned, Kamal. They marched here earlier in the day. Hundreds stayed here. I'd say a few thousand actually stayed here down this alley. Police were guarding that. They also retreated when the other police retreated 45 minutes ago. So when these anti-government protesters came in, there was a clash. I would say a sustained clash for about 10, maybe 15 minutes. Water bottles, some bricks being thrown back and forth. Nothing major, but that's the first time we have seen this. And again, that is the main concern for the government, for both supporters of either side of this protest movement, if you will, is if these 2 groups start to confront each other directly. And that's what we saw on a small scale, but we still saw it here. And now it seems to be that things have calmed down. You can see the protesters here trying to calm everyone down and not rush through that barricade abandoned by the police. That seemed to have worked, but again, there was a little bit of a clash. It seems to have calmed now, but you can see, you can hear that the anti-government protesters are very happy now that they're able to occupy the street right in front of Parliament.
Scott, if you can still hear me, I'm just interested in what is different about these. We've seen protests in Thailand for many years, but there's something different here. The open discussion of the monarchy, protesting against the monarchy, and the longevity of these protests as well.
Absolutely. That is the main difference, Kamal. You know, we've seen different types of protests, different versions, some peaceful, some not so peaceful, worse than what we've seen over the last hour or so here. But what is the main difference is that, and this goes into the draft that the protesters here are supporting of the amendment to the Constitution, and that is reform within the monarchy. This is something, I've been here covering this story, politics in Thailand, for 8 years. That is an area, a subject that has never been broached like it has been over these last several months. So that's why you've seen the temperature, if you will, elevate on both sides. They're very adamant about having the monarchy reformed. The yellow shirts, the pro-monarchy ralliers today, they want it to stay as it is. So that is the main difference, Kamal. And when you look at Thailand's history, the royal family, the monarchy has always been a very central point of the country here, and obviously that is a big thing to change, and that's why we're seeing such overwhelming support on either side and tension when we see each side come together like this.
Scott Heidler, and amongst the protests there in Bangkok. Thank you, Scott, for that update.